No Excuses with Michael DiLeonardo. I'm your host, RJ Roger, and what we're going to talk about today is Michael's time in solitary confinement. 10 South. What's 10 South?
10 South's where they put all the bad boys or people they want to break. After the first World Trade Center, I think it was 93, they had a floor, the 10th floor, that's south end. They call north side, south side, of the building. They converted it into 6 cells with a control center there, and it was built for the blind sheikh and any other Muslims or radicals that they found. It was meant for them. It was, like I said, it was only 6 cells in a control center. Now, you had to be a lieutenant or have special security to get there, get up on this floor. Your cell door can't be opened up unless there's a lieutenant or higher there to open up your cell door. You have cells that have 2 cameras in them, lights on 24 hours a day. The windows are blacked out. You can't see out unless you scratch a little hole, which there were some holes you could see out to the world. The walls were steel, floors were concrete, bed was concrete desk, shower in the cell with no hot water, zero hot water, cold water, the toilet bowl, and a door just with typical Fed prison door, just a glass and a slot to cuff up and get your food. By rule, you're not allowed to talk, but who are you going to talk to? Nobody to talk to. You don't have a cellie. There's no pipes. You can't hang yourself. There's no way you can hurt yourself. If they put Epstein in that cell, he's alive today. You can't kill yourself. You can't. The only thing you die of is a broken heart in there. Serious. You can't kill yourself unless you starve yourself, which is a possibility too, because the food is horrendous. So it's no rec. I got no rec. When I was up there, no rec. Supposed to give you, by law, supposed to give you an hour a day. The sunshine, out in the open. Never got it. Never got it anyway. So it's 10 South. It's meant to break you. Complete isolation.
You were there.
Yeah, I was a guest. 6 months.
I didn't know much about it, to be honest. I didn't even really, until I was reading his book, looking back through it, and I stumbled upon some stuff about it. And he didn't give as much detail as you did, but but it sounds like how I take it, and kind of now listening to you, this kind of stuff I question. At what point are we infringing upon constitutional rights of cruel and unusual punishment? I'm not going to get into a big criminal justice thing here, but I'm just making a general statement. Now you're saying it's designed to try to break you, to cause you to flip.
Or go nuts.
Okay. Because Junior wrote in here, we was talking about you. He tried to kill himself because he felt guilty over his behavior, but his girlfriend found him and called the ambulance. He was brought to the hospital, had his stomach pumped, and was released several days later, back to jail. Not in the general population, but in 10 South. He describes 10 South as inedible food, lights on 24/7, video surveillance, foul-smelling, filthy, and you stayed there in that cell for every hour of the day. DiLeonardo lost 50 pounds.
70.
Okay. But as there were no mirrors in the cell, he couldn't see himself. That was the worst, he said. Great government work. Already an attempted suicide, thrown into the worst possible conditions of confinement. Why? To turn him and keep him turned. Keep him loyal to his captors in true Stockholm Syndrome mode. It sounds, how I read that is he's saying, man, he's kind of speaking about and he says that there. He says, great government work. And it sounds to me he's almost questioning the system. Yes, I'm sure he doesn't feel good about what happened, but he's really questioning these type of treatments. Why did the government do this to Michael? To turn him and to keep him turned, to keep him loyal to his captors in true Stockholm Syndrome mode.
Well, I didn't fall into the Stockholm Syndrome. I know about Stockholm Syndrome pretty well. And I was very, very aware of that. Usually people, when they try to commit suicide, there's something psychologically wrong. Completely in my right mind, which made it extremely difficult. So this wasn't that I was in the captor's hands for X amount of time. Then I flipped. I was not. I was in general population. So I did not fall into Stockholm Syndrome at all. My decision to flip became on my reaction after I was put on the shelf. It was an emotional reaction to a stimulus from the outside that made me break as far as my mettle for that life. So I wasn't part of a Stockholm being held captive and then you conform to those ways. Just in basic layman terms is the way I'll say it. You're around them so much and the psychological damage is being done to you. You feel sympathy for your captors. It's part of that syndrome. And you take on this persona of what they really are and you conform to their ways. So that didn't happen because it wasn't the circumstance. When I got put in a hole, it was there's two cells they could have put you in. There's a suicide cell there, which I never hit. I don't know what it looks like, but I heard there was one. It's all plexiglass or glass. They put you in there and you're like in a fishbowl. When I was put in this cell, I was already passed out. And I woke up naked. I was naked for days. And with no jumpsuit. So no glasses, I couldn't see. Not that I needed to see far, I could, but if I wanted to try and look at something close, I couldn't. Everything was blurry. I didn't get any books. They wouldn't send books. They wouldn't give me my mail while I'm in this hole. I didn't see a lawyer. My lawyer was in Atlanta. He had to fly in. After several days, he got in. And, upon seeing him, and him looking at these conditions, like, what the hell is this? Where the hell am I? He said, what is this place? He didn't know it existed. And, it was a situation I put myself in. As far as the BOP, that is their procedure. They do it to people. It wasn't to, I don't blame the FBI for it at all. There's a BOP situation that they put you through. You try to commit suicide, you're capable of anything. They're going to put you in a place where they can't get a lawsuit for you killing yourself. There's no pipes. This is a place where you can't kill yourself. So it's like administrative detention, AD. And they put you in a place, not like the regular hole, but since I had a suicide attempt, they put me in a place where I can't do it. So they put me in the radical unit where you can't. For the other people, the radicals that they found all over the world, the Muslim extremists that this was built for, they put me in there. It was 2 or 3 guys I was locked up with in different cells. I was the only white guy. There was another Spanish guy He was losing his mind, this guy. He was just banging on the door all day and all night long. He just bang. I thought it was like a drum, like on a ship. You know, when the Viking ships, they would bang just so the guys could row. This guy wouldn't stop. He said, where's he getting this energy from? He just banged all day. And the Muslims there. So they were in a very, very controlled environment. They see everything you do, and you can never hurt yourself. So I put myself in their minds that they did not want me to commit suicide. They wanted me to testify at this point. Now, they know just for legal stuff, I guess if you try to commit suicide and they put you where there's a pipe, you may kill yourself, right? So, but the cruel and unusual punishment part of that, the other things that go on, that's the stuff that is illegal. That's the stuff that should be condemned. The food they give you, no heat in the wintertime, no psychological help if you need it, no doctor's visit. They knock on your door just to see you're alive. That's it. I called one guy, Dr. Moreau. He didn't like it. I called him back. I say, you're a doctor? He goes, yeah, PA. I said, no, who you really are? He goes, who? I said, you're Dr. Moreau. You ever see The Island of Dr. Moreau? You should see it. People out there, I don't got to tell you, but you should see it. It's a pretty good movie. So, you know, this is the condition you wind up in. Yes, it does. It can break. There's been guys that didn't break. Plenty of guys that didn't break. You know, there's Jimmy Ida was in there. I don't know how long he was there. He was there. Some other guys were there. Grants were there. But I was there for 6 months and under bad mental conditions, of course, what I did. When I flipped, you self-loathe. You hate yourself. So that's what made those conditions worse. You don't know what's going on in the outside world. It's only one 15-minute phone call a month.
Wow.
Yeah. And sometimes they just shut the line down on you. You get about 7 or 8 minutes and that's it.
A month. So you talk to your family or your kids or your wife or your girlfriend, whatever, for 15 minutes a month.
On the telephone. Yep. That's it. And you don't get out of your cell. They bring it to your cell. Yeah, visits are, they were non-contact for a while. You sit between the screen. And this is not for sympathy. I'm just describing the situation. It's not even for me. There's a lot of people go through it. There's people, the Muslims never got a visit. Nobody get a visit from. And it's extremely hard to get in there. They torture you. Whoever wants to visit you, they break their chops from the minute they walk in that building. If they know you're going to that south, until you leave. There's one lieutenant I like to run into him one day.
I always wonder this because, all of us in life just worry about so much stuff day to day. Oh, I got to pay this tomorrow. I got to go over and do this. I got to take my son and do this. My wife needs this. But just standard life things that we all have on our plate day to day, week to week, month to month. I always wonder. So like when you just boom, and you're in a place like that, like what happens to the rest of like all your things? And how do you, when you got people calling for money or you're worried about bills or girlfriends or whatever, like I always wonder like about that part of it. When you just strip a person out of life, just pick them up and put them somewhere else, but life still goes on. All your responsibilities and things that you are responsible for are still there. So but when you're in that kind of situation, are you thinking, oh, nothing I can do, and that's the end of it? Or is it a day-to-day where you're like, this here, she has to probably worry about this. Oh, what about my son this? Or I'm supposed to do this? Or do you just kind of stop thinking about it?
Well, the thing about being in prison, and a lot of guys that were in prison will tell you this, you really have to shut out the outside world. Your home is where you're living in prison. If your mind is on the outside of those walls, right, you're going to do a very, very, very tough bit. Very tough. You're going to torture yourself. You have to disconnect as much as you can from the control you had outside when you're in the street.
Are you taught that on the street before you even go in, or do you learn that once you're there?
Well, a lot of people, they go to jail. I know a lot of people in and out, including my brother, being in prison. You know that. It's one of the rules of the street. You pick that rule up when you go to jail. You better get ready because you can't control much on the street once you're off. Now, that's something that a lot of people on small bids, you get away with it. When you get a larger bid, you better conform. You can do a very bad bid. Being in the situation I was, or anybody like myself that cooperated, there's nothing on the outside but people that are going to shun you. Nobody wants to be bothered with you. You flipped. Everything you had in the street, your life that you built in the street, you don't know what's going on out there. I had a 16-year-old out there, 14 or whatever he was, 16, out there running around. I had a boy that just turned 2 out there. So you're wondering about everything there is. You can't stop your mind at that point and say, well, I know this one's helping. My mother's healthy. My mother watched the kid. Madeline will come up. We'll do this. We'll do that. I'll get a regular visit. No, you're in a different environment once you flip. You're ostracized from the community you once knew. The people that would be your support team on the outside to help your family. You can see how much they helped my family before I flipped. It was non-existent. They're trying to take everything, and they did take everything, which is another story. But the isolation part with all of that is factored in. And, I remember looking, because I didn't get books for a while. They wouldn't give me a book. I didn't have glasses anyway. I had to work on getting glasses after I got the books because I can't read the books. I couldn't see it. I was farsighted, so anything that was close, I couldn't read. And you lose 70 pounds. I didn't know I lost 70 pounds. I didn't know how I knew is when I finally got out and weighed myself. I was 2.25. I was like 150. When I got out, my skin was hanging off my face, you're going through all these psychological and physical stuff when you're in there, besides having your mind on the outside trying to say, what the hell's going on? You got no context. One phone call a month, or when she finally got permission to come up and see me, Madeline, with the baby. And there was non-contact visits, and then, they gave us some contact visits, which is you're in a little cube. It's not like you're out in the open, you're in a little cube. So it's tough on your mind, and you really have to be a strong-minded person to really deal with it. But once you flip, like I said, it's a lot more difficult because you feel a lot of guilt. Again, you say, what am I doing here? What did I do? And if you have a conscience, some people don't have a conscience, easy for them, maybe. Easier. Then you got your food and the cold and freezing you out and all this other nonsense that goes along with it. So they try to break your spirit, which they will break your spirit. It's just a matter of time.
You might disagree with, I think you will disagree with me on this, but it doesn't matter how much, who schools you or how much you think you know something. Until you're pressed up against pain, it's real hard to know what you're going to do. I'm always careful to judge a person without having some time in that condition, because you really don't know what you'll do until you're in that type of a situation. But just looking at it informationally, I can see how going through those type of situations can almost disillusion you a bit. A person, street guy, almost a guy that might spend his whole life in the streets, and now for the first time he gets jammed up, and now you're feeling time away from your kids, your family, the prison boy. Intellectually, hey, this is part of this life. You're going to get pinched one day. You're going to go down. You're going to go to jail. You're going to be away from your kids. All that. That's the rules of the street. And you're supposed to prepare for it. Put away money for lawyers and things like that. Have some stash for your family to keep going while you're in. But then you get in it. And now it's a whole different thing when you're in it.
So Joseph told me, John, is want closure.
I could see how a guy can become disillusioned and say, man, everything I believed was fucking bullshit. Or someone like yourself, you go in and then all your friends and people who swore to be your brother all turn on you. My mind can say, man, you could sit there and say, none of it is what I believed. Almost like Junior said, tell Michael he was right. So he was disillusioned to a certain extent. He believed something before, but now that he's encountered with the reality of it, he sees it a little bit different. So here's my question. When you tell these stories about 10 South, people turning on you and stuff, how doesn't it take away your love for that life, for Cosa Nostra? Or how don't you become, quote unquote, disillusioned to the life?
Well, the first thing to know is going in, you know, what can happen to you. You know, you could be all the way up to killed by your best friends to bring you in. You know this already. You can't change the game. You can't. You know this. You came with eyes wide open. I didn't take an oath to John Gotti. I took an oath to that entity, ideology. That was my beliefs. The people that wind up in power and made the mistakes with me and others in the street, you can't hold everybody else in the street accountable for these few people that hurt you. I did at that moment, and I made a mistake by flipping. I should have just, like I did with my brother's death, eat it until I come home. But I reacted. And, you know, I understood, to keep yourself so much in sane and rational in any situation, you have to look at yourself. If you're going to blame this one and this one and this one, poor me, this one did that, maybe you convince yourself that everybody's wrong and you're the virtuous one. You're the good guy. That's not me. I look at me first. You have to look at yourself and what you're about, what your beliefs are, what your mettle is. And start with you first, to blame you if you did something wrong. And then be objective to what makes a good leader, right? You got to know yourself first. You can't lie to yourself or what and who you are. How's anybody else going to respect you? Because they're going to know you're a fucking fraud. Hypocritical, hypocrisies, double standards, right? So when you get into, after I try to flip, I try to kill myself. Can I blame the whole government for doing that? I put me there. I knew what could happen if I didn't die. I tried to come inside to die. I didn't know she was going to save my life. Her and her sister dragged me down the stairs and get me to the hospital. It wasn't the plan. I woke up in this place. I put me there. You got to take responsibility for what you did. My pain was, what did I do to me? Not what they did to me. How do I cope with reality blaming somebody else? Sure, there was stimulus, and sure things were happening. Yeah, and I decided to flip. I was in my right mind.
Is reality, when you're faced with it, it's no longer an intellectual teaching that Paulie's Act gave you. Now we're here. Is it much different when you're there? Is there no preparation for what you're going into? When you go into a place like 10 South, when you're having friends turn on you, even though you've been taught since you were a little boy, the expression you used was since the kneecap, Is there no preparation for that? Is that when a new side of you has to kick in? It's a test between you and yourself.
That I agree with that, because you don't know until you walk in somebody's shoes, right? So the old tongue in cheek. I'll give you an example. You could train the best Navy SEAL all day long, right? You know when he's tested? When he's in Fallujah.
There you go.
That's when you know if he made it.
Ain't that the truth?
You could do 1,000 push-ups a day, right? You could do 1,000 push-ups a day, look great in a uniform.
Wow.
You could be a marksman. But when you have to start killing people and watching your friends get blown up or shot up and body parts all over, the horrificness of that is when your metal has to kick in and you know who you are. That's about probably the best example I could give you, because now your life, you're watching death around you. That could be you, the guy laying next to you. And when you get in that situation, shine that fucking metal, because you shined in the street. I shined in the street. I had people look up to me in the street. I had people depend on me in the street. I looked up to people in the street. I can't turn it around, RJ. I have to take it. I can't turn it around and blame others. It's me.
No, I can. Anyone who's listening to this right now, they'll say the same thing, that they know you mean it. I didn't understand this stuff with you when I first met you. We talked about it all the time, and I would always say, "But Michael," and I would give you. I tell you when I really understood it, and I'll cut this part out of the show I'm about to say, because this is kind of maybe a little bit personal. But I was talking to your wife, and she said she was really mad about this conversation that we're having. And she said, RJ, the best example is it's like you're in love with a man that's in love with another woman. That was like her explanation for it. It's like I made all these sacrifices because I love him. I make all these sacrifices. I come with you. I ride with you. I change my whole life for you because I love you. And then when he has to talk about this life he left, he still talks about it with love. He still talks about it with, he has this pain over inside of him because of having to leave that life. But it's like you have to leave this in her mind. It almost feels like you left that life for me, being with me, but you're still worried about this other woman or this other thing that you love. But I'm here. And I said, man, that was a great example. That was a really good way to put it in my head as far as like how maybe the family could feel. What about us?
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. We had so many deep conversations, and she is priority number one. After all this, she's the one who stayed here, of course. Mm-hmm. But it still doesn't mean it's not another woman. There's nothing to be jealous of. It was a life before I met her that was ingrained in me before I met her. And she can't understand. And like I told you, you're not supposed to understand. It's okay not to understand it. It's like certain things in your life. You could give me your life experiences, the bad ones, because the good ones easy, right? Hey, we had a good time. But the bad ones is maybe I can't feel your stress, your pain, or figure out what actually went to happen in your life. But for me, it's not that there's a detachment from Madeline, right? Because of my other life. That's not the case. And if she felt that way, I'm sorry about that. Because it's not. I love her very much. I always have. And she's always been here with me. And kept my son. That's extremely noble. So I get her point. But she just wants to see me sound and not go through any pain, because she's seen enough out of me. So she wants it to end like anything else. When you love somebody, you don't want to see anxiety, pain, or stress in them, especially when everything is going good. Mm-hmm. Right? So, and they made sacrifices, which they had. She has multiple. I know there's not too many people would stick. No way. No way. She's a very loyal, noble woman. 25 years I'm with this girl. And she's still here. So, I get her point, but it's different. I understand, again, what she's saying. She wants to be whole, away from that, separated. But you have something in your life for 47 years, how you separate it, It's a little tough. And it's not a physical thing as being separated from, which would be enough. It's a mental thing that you need to separate. And how do you separate? It's not like you could, erase a part of your brain. You can't. It's like trauma, PTSD. People live in war, or they go through trauma. They carry the trauma maybe for the rest of their lives at times. So how do you separate that? If it was that easy, there'd be no PTSD. They would have a pill, give it to you, it'd be gone. Or they would cut it out. That's your memory, it's your mind. It's the way you felt, what you've seen. These are emotions. It's like love, being in love and somebody not loving you anymore, right? You can still be in love with them. That's our example. But it's not the case. It's separate. It's separate.
Yeah, sometimes you have those people you meet who you love them, and then one day you get over it, and then you got those people that you love forever. And I sometimes wonder if that's going to be a thing with you with this Cosa Nostra thing. And to me, that's what makes this thing so. If you want to know what fascinates me about this subject, it's only in this life. It's only in, you can't find that. There's something more. That's why I always said there's something more. There's something bigger. I'm not sure if it still exists anymore, and I have my own opinion on it. But Cosa Nostra had a different type of a meaning to its members, to people who were in it, than I find in just street people. Because you can street guys is different than in my opinion. You have street guys, and you got Cosa Nostra, and they're different. It's a different mindset in that guy, where it's not the same as it's like a. It's almost, I always compare it to like a religion, like Christianity. There's people who swear, who get saved, and then they swear they accept Jesus as their savior, and they're so ingrained in it, they'll die before they denounce him. It's all they believe so dearly in it.
Well, again, it goes into whatever you believe in. You believe in a relationship, you believe you love your wife, you love your kids, or there's a cutoff to say, I can stop loving them. I'll give you one little example. I was in MCC, being in that one unit there, on the third floor. This is afterwards. And people, it was transient place. Guys would come in and get sentenced in the cooperation unit. Get sentenced. They just came in. They come out of the hole. They come downstairs. People would, it was transient place. Go to court. If you want to go into court, this is where they held you. They brought you to court. All of this. So a guy comes in from where Sally Vitale was. Not Sally Vitale, was the underboss, the Bonetta family. And sort of a message for me was, tell Michael hello. In my words, why do you stress over this? You flip. What the hell are you worried about? Just flip. Forget it. And I didn't know whether to be like, is that supportive comment or fuck these guys? Was it? He never got it. When I heard it from him, I'm saying this guy was always going to flip if he got arrested. If it's that easy for you to say that you're going to put your brother-in-law, Joe, and everybody else in prison, and if it's that easy, you flip. What are you worried about? And you had no passion for it. You never did. You used it. And I don't know if he meant that, how he meant it, was the message right, but that's what it was. Tell Michael, you flip. What's he worried about? So there's a different, he was happy with his decision. He had no passion for it. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know if you're going to give me permission to use this show, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you could use it. Why not? True.
I mean, this wasn't even a plan. If I tell you a curveball is coming, you're more, in my opinion, if I say, Michael, I'm throwing you a curveball, I think you're more likely to miss it than you are if I don't tell you what's coming. You seem to be better when you don't know what pitch is coming.
I still have good reflexes. This way, physically, and better ones up here. Don't go with my reflexes.
Yeah. Guys, leave comments, leave feedback, and we'll see you Saturday at 3:30.
Well, RJ, you got me again. You surprised me again with a subject. And just want everybody to know, whatever we talked about, whatever I spilt out, it wasn't to garner any sympathy. I don't want nobody feeling sorry for me for this. It's just the facts. And I live with it, and I'm getting by with it. But this is part of that life. When you change the script, be prepared if you have a conscience. If you don't have a conscience, like Salvatore Vitale said, you'll live a great life. Me,
Thank you, guys.
I'll take my life, RJ, with a conscience.
Yeah. I think people will like this show. You heard it here first. So. All right, guys. We'll see you Saturday at 3:30.
God bless everybody. Hug your kids. Hug your wives. Or your husbands. Stay well.